Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Eli Crane just sounds off on Representative Garcia, who says something that's absolutely asinine in front of the entirety of Congress. You can't wait to see his response. Let's dive in.
Here's the truth. In order to actually get more funds for their tax cut program, they need to slash trillions. And where are they going to do that? Well, they've started. The Department of Education, the Department of Labor, Veterans Benefits, USAID, and eventually Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Right now, as we know, Elon Musk, the richest man on the planet, is trying to destroy USAID with his Doge team. Now, this is the agency we know that distributes foreign aid, but that's just step one of their plan. Now, of course, we know they're going after the Department of Education. And here's an article from the Washington Post as well. Trump preps order to dismantle the Department of Education as Doge probes data. Now, let me just begin by saying that their mission is to destroy federal agencies like the Department of Ed, to then save money and then transfer that wealth to Elon Musk, his companies, and their billionaire friends through a massive tax cut. I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Crane from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, would it be possible to get some therapy dogs in here for my colleagues on the other side of the aisle?
We could ask Mr. Raskin's shrink to...
I'm worried about their mental stability. You know, I think it's funny, Mr. Chairman, when I hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle whining and complaining.
Those are insults, to be clear.
Elon Musk. Excuse me, this is my time, thanks. Elon Musk and, you know, how much money he donated to President Trump. Yet I don't recall the same outrage when, you know, billionaires on their side of the aisle like Mark Zuckerberg, George Soros, you know, or any of the other ones that were donating massive sums of money to their side of the aisle. Mr. Resch, I want to start with you real quick. I read something you stated in your testimony. You said, rather than a bloated bureaucracy, we face a workforce stretched too thin, forced to oversee an increasingly complex web of outsourced operation with limited personnel and resources. Is that correct? Did you say that in your testimony, sir?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to read you a list of priorities over at USAID right now, one of the agencies that Elon Musk, who's triggered my colleagues on the left so much, the Agency for International Development, which had a budget of over $40 billion in fiscal year 2023. This is not a exhaustive list. It's a very small list, but $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for a nonprofit linked to designated terror organizations, even after an inspector general launched an investigation. Have you ever ran a large organization or a small business?
No, I have not.
I just find it interesting that we bring in a governor of one of the United States who has actually run a state to talk about all the cuts, the elimination of fraud, waste, and abuse, and how she's got her state high-performing and made a bunch of changes so that they actually have a surplus. And my Democrat colleagues bring in a professor who's never run a large organization, never run a small business, and therefore has really no idea what it's like to deal with the consequences of out-of-control spending and inefficiencies. Does that strike anybody else in the room as odd? And the last thing I'll say is, because my Democrat colleagues are losing their mind with Elon Musk, don't forget that Elon Musk campaigned with the president. The American people were very excited about Elon Musk using all of the tools and experience that he has and that he's used in the private sector to come in and streamline this federal government. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is the fundamental difference between the modern Republican Party and the modern Democrat Party. Ever since Woodrow Wilson came to power in 1912, his whole MO was to increase the power of the state by having an increasingly intrusive bureaucracy that would come in and make decisions for the American people, ultimately usurping the whole point and purpose of Congress. Then FDR came along and made this even worse with the New Deal, which turned out to be a raw deal. And then LBJ took on the same mantle and pushed everything worse with the Great Society. Nearly every single one of their attempts has ended either in failure or has barely been kept on life support, and has ultimately led to a whole host of problems that now the Department of Government Efficiency truly understands and wants to deal with. And see, that's the Democrat problem right there. They refuse to police their side. They refuse to admit that government waste exists. They refuse to look inward at their own bureaucratic mess, which, by the way, the majority of people in government vote for Democrats. Okay? This is not a reflection of the American people. It's a reflection of people who want to keep their jobs, for lack of a better phrase. Now, granted, that's a normal thing to want, right? You, of course, are going to vote in your best interest. But when it comes to the bureaucratic nightmare that is our federal government, all of a sudden we're finding all these ways to save money. With a man outside of government being able to look at these processes and go, you can streamline this here. You don't need this program here. This whole department probably needs to be moved somewhere else. And so it's the exact same weapons the Democrats have given the Republicans. And see, the Republicans usually come from a more strict constitutional background. That if Congress doesn't say that this should happen, well, it shouldn't happen to begin with. And instead, the Democrats slowly pack the court, which has been their dream ever since FDR met so much resistance from the Supreme Court. And finally, we now have a Supreme Court that cares more about what's written in the Constitution. Congress is where most policies are supposed to come from, and yet most policies have been dictated from the lack of legislation and lack of a judicial bench from the very federal bureaucracy underneath the president, which is basically the CEO of the government. Well, guess what? That's not what the founders intended. And that's definitely not what was written down. I am not a originalist, by the way, when it comes to the Constitution. I am a legalist. If it's not in the Constitution, you don't get to do it. It should be that simple. And the Republican Party obviously does not believe in having this government bloat. They don't even like the fact that a lot of it exists to begin with because it wasn't done correctly according to a constitutional basis. Funny how that works. And now they also have realized that it's better to have more executive-minded people come in and make sure things are run properly. Republican governors tend to do a better job than Democrat governors. The vast majority of Republicans across the South are having these massive upticks in their economy over the past 10, 20 years, all because Republicans have slowly been able to make their way forward and cut through the Democrat-bureaucrat state. That is what has happened, and that's a big reason why the South is now an economic powerhouse. Most of the most important politicians coming through the Republican Party are from Florida, Louisiana, Texas, Georgia. The majority of them are from these southern states. And compare that to the Democrat ones, the Illinois, New Yorks, and Californias. Well, funny, they're only on a couple of coastlines, whereas the ones I just mentioned are a much broader spectrum. And as far as opponents go here, Representative Garcia is likely going to be, this is where I'm putting my money, the main three players right now for 2028 are AOC, Gavin Newsom, and Garcia. Now, AOC is already well known, and it didn't work too well the last time they ran Kamala Harris, so she's probably not going to win the primaries, but she's going to get close and leverage that for more power. Gavin Newsom realizes that, I might need to change my persona a little bit and might need to soften up in order to win my primaries. But Garcia is going pedal to the metal. This is where my money currently is, and we'll be keeping a good eye on him because this guy actually does scare me just the least little bit. And it's not because he could put a good coalition together. Absolutely not. He scares me because he believes his own tribe. Okay? And not tribe, tripe. This guy fully believes that what he has behind him is 100% true. That how dare Elon Musk just go through our federal government and correctly cut things that need to be cut. We are running $2 trillion deficits, and we have got to find ways to pay off those problems. It's either going to be through massive tax cuts, which, by the way, those things work. Every time we pass a tax cut, the economy gets better. And then the tariffs, another way to raise money. But then finally, being able to cut the waste in our federal government is a great way to deal with our ridiculous $2 trillion yearly deficit. I think we need to start there. But Garcia is fear-mongering, as Democrats often do, that it's going to be Social Security and Medicare next. And that's their most effective fear-mongering tactic. Yes, we are going to be taking a look at Social Security and Medicare. And yes, we are probably going to find a lot more waste, fraud, and abuse. But the Republican Party is not taking away those programs. It is not taking away the contract that they have with older Americans. That is the reality of the situation, and the Democrats will do anything to obfuscate about the reality. That DOJ is merely cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse. And Eli Crane is correct to call them out on this insipid nonsense. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politbrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.